Before there was Ellen Ripley. Before there was Wonder Woman. There was the original action heroine, Atalanta. Now available at Amazon, Smashwords, and at studiobrainstorm.net. Links in the description. The Guru are beings of flesh and spirit, and sometimes the duty to fight the corrupting influence of the worm, and to a lesser extent the weaver as well, cannot be done on the mortal plane. It must take place in the Umbra, the realm of spirits. But the Umbra is more than just a werewolf the apocalypse thing. There are certain aspects of the Umbra that are relevant to other World of Darkness properties, like Wraith the Oblivion and Mage the Ascension. And while I'm never really going to dive into the lore of Mage or Wraith simply because those particular World of Darkness properties hold no interest for me, at some point in the future I do intend to do at least basic introductory videos on some of the other World of Darkness properties. Mainly because I feel that they help contribute to fleshing out certain factions within werewolf and vampire respectively. For example, I feel that a basic understanding of Wraith the Oblivion helps to flesh out the Silent Strider tribe, while a bit of grounding in Mage the Ascension I think helps explain the origins of Clan Tremere in Vampire. As such, I can't really just limit this video on the Umbra to only the parts that are relevant to the werewolves. So this video is going to be essentially a diamond nickel tour of all the various realms of the Umbra. Although because the werewolf part is the most fleshed out, it's going to be the part that I'm going to focus on the most. So, to begin our tour of World of Darkness's own idea of the spirit world, we must first address the Gauntlet, the metaphysical barrier that separates the spirit world from the material world. As far as can be determined, the Gauntlet has always existed, but for most of history, quote-unquote, it was fairly weak. And so it was often very easy for beings with supernatural abilities to transition between one plane of existence and the other, a process that the Guru refer to as stepping sideways. However, for the last few thousand years or so, the Gauntlet has become increasingly difficult to pass through. For lack of any better words, the barrier between the world of the material and the world of the spirit has grown increasingly thick and resilient. The werewolves blame this difficulty on the growing influence of the Weaver, whose spirits, known as pattern spiders, continuously spin the pattern web. It is believed that the Weaver wishes to separate the chaotic and transmutable world of the spirit from the material world so that it will be that much easier for her to impose order upon that material world. Meanwhile, the mages of the Nine Traditions blame the increasing thickness of the Gauntlet on the influence of their great enemy, the technocracy, and its imposition of the materialistic, rationalistic view of the world upon the consensus of the human race. For the Guru, this difficulty in penetrating the Gauntlet is what has made cairns so especially important in the modern nights. They are places where the Gauntlet is especially thin, making it that much easier for werewolves to step sideways with minimal expenditure of their spirit power, or gnosis. Many werewolves have also found that using a reflective surface, like a piece of glass, a mirror, or a reflective pool of water, helps in stepping sideways through the Gauntlet. Any kind of reflective surface will do the job. Once the Gauntlet has been penetrated, the prospective traveler finds himself first in what is called the penumbra, a sort of middle ground between the spirit world proper and the material plane. The penumbra is often referred to as the Earth's shadow, and in appearance acts mostly as a reflection of the material world. For example, if you stepped sideways in, say, New York City, in the penumbra you would find yourself in a mirror image of New York City. However, because the penumbra is still technically part of the spirit world proper, it's still very malleable. Depending on the perceptions and viewpoints of the person who is making the transition into the spirit world, that mirror image of, in this case, New York City, will be recognizable as New York City, but still different from its earthly counterpart. Its appearance may be more exaggerated, appear darker and more twisted than its earthly counterpart. It really is all in the eye of the beholder, and given that this is such a realm susceptible to perception and differing opinions, exact details are obviously quite vague. The penumbra is roughly divided into 5 regions, 3 of which connect directly to different parts of the Umbra proper, while the other 2 connect to similar but distinct forms of alternate reality. There is the digital web, which links directly to virtual reality, which is exactly what it sounds like and is almost exclusively the domain of a specific mage tradition known as the Virtual Adepts. And there is also the Dream Time, a part of the penumbra that can only be accessed via Australia. It connects specifically to the Dreaming, an alternate reality where the changelings reside whenever possible. The remaining 3 penumbral regions link to the 3 primary divisions of the Umbra. The Astral Plane, which links directly to the High Umbra or Astral Reaches, the part of the Umbra that most concerns the mages, particularly those who specialize in the magical sphere of the mind. There is the Shadowlands, which links directly to the Dark Umbra, where resides the underworld and thus the domain of the Wraiths. And finally, there are the Spirit Wilds, which links directly to the so-called Middle Umbra. This is the part of the Umbra that most concerns the Garou. I'm not going to really dwell on either virtual reality or the dreaming, as they're technically not part of the Umbra per se and rather exist as other alternate planes of existence. As for the Shadowlands and the Underworld, I'm going to mostly save that for when I get around to doing the Silent Striders and I do that introductory video on Wraith the Oblivion to help flesh it out. Suffice it to say, the Underworld is where the spirits of the restless dead, the Wraiths, reside. It's mostly comprised of a giant metaphysical storm of sorts known as the Tempest, in which reside small islands of stability known as the Dark Kingdoms. The actual homes of sorts of the Wraiths, the most prominent in the setting of Wraith the Oblivion being Stygia, the Dark Kingdom of Iron. Alas, there is very little to say about the Astral Reaches, or the High Umbra. And this is in part because, unlike the other 3 main regions of the Umbra, it deals with almost purely abstract concepts. Indeed, the further one penetrates into the astral reaches, the more abstract and ephemeral the concepts reflected within it become. First past the penumbra is the Vulgate, the region that deals with the most accessible and concrete of base concepts. As such, it is the most easily accessible part of the astral reaches. The Vulgate is therefore perhaps the most diverse part of the astral reaches, as many of the various physical concepts incorporated within it form micro-regions of sorts. For example, the concept of the city, or a chair, or the sensation of a blinding light, the concept of learning. They are all reflections of either direct human experience or of concepts that human beings can easily define. Traveling through the astral reaches is often compared to ascending, not in any physical sense, but rather ascending in achieving a higher state of mind. As such, above the Vulgate are the spires. The spires themselves are ideas that are far more abstract than those in the Vulgate, but are similar enough to one another that they will cluster together. The spires therefore function both as realms of abstract thought in and of themselves, but also as pathways that mages may use to mentally ascend to the next part of the astral reaches, the courts. Here dwell representations of powerful fundamental concepts. The afterworlds, which deals with the ideas of religion and the afterlife. The fortress of government, which is divided among various different ideas of what a leader is. The court of the muses, which is concerned primarily with the ideas and concepts of the arts, as well as the 2 elemental courts. The court of the Occident, which is based around the classical Western conception of the fundamental elements, earth, fire, air, and water, and the court of the Orient, which deals with the East Asian concept of the elements, fire, earth, wood, water, and metal. Finally, beyond the courts, at the very ends of the spires, are the epiphanies. This region of the astral reaches is often described as a series of nebulous clouds, which is appropriate because the epiphanies are concerned with the most abstract and nebulous ideas of all. Concepts like history, the purpose of life, the number pi, true love, virtue, etc. Whereas the Dark Umbra is mostly inhabited by the spirits of the restless dead, the High Umbra is populated by spirits that represent the idealized form of their counterparts in the physical world. which makes the astral reaches something akin to Plato's world of forms. For example, a tree spirit in the astral reaches would resemble the idealized, perfect version of a tree based on the combined human consensus of what a tree is. And now we come to the main event, the middle umbra. This is the part of the umbra that is most frequently visited by the guru. For where the dark umbra is concerned with death and the afterlife, and the high umbra deals with increasingly abstract concepts, the middle umbra is that part of the spirit world that serves as a reflection of nature, both in its pristine state and the all too frequently corrupted form that it takes in the modern nights thanks to the efforts of the worm and its minions. The middle umbra is divided into multiple different realms, each one pertaining to various aspects of guru spirituality, including realms dominated by differing members of the triad, the wild, the weaver, and the worm. While the middle umbra is almost exclusively the preserve of the guru, some other supernaturals like mages have been known to travel to this part of the umbra as well. And of course, since the realms of the middle umbra are not dealing in abstract concepts like the astral reaches, there's actually a great deal of description about the topography and geography of their various environments. So, in alphabetical order, we begin with the abyss. Referred to by mages as the chasm, the abyss is believed to have been created by acts of extreme destruction reflected in the spirit world, although no one can say exactly what destructive act created the abyss itself. Of all the spirit realms of the middle umbra, the abyss is relatively easy to find, as many a path will lead inevitably to this place. Of these, the three most noteworthy paths are named for the metal ores that striate the rock of the tunnels that lead to the abyss: the golden path, the silver path, and the iron path. Whatever road you take to get to the abyss, the first thing you will encounter is nothing but a bank of fog. Pass through that, you reach what appears to be a barren expanse of mud and rocks. Travel far enough beyond that, and eventually you will come to a pit. So deep, so wide, it is essentially bottomless. Anything that is thrown into the abyss never returns. It is quite easy for the unwary to stumble into the abyss, for the realm slowly but surely deprives you of any form of sensory perception. Sight, hearing, even scent become less and less reliable the further in you travel. Many believe that the abyss is the source of Harano, a feeling of spiritual depression that sometimes overcomes werewolves, leading them to a self-destructive state of mind. Whether it is people, werewolves, or even spirits, the abyss is believed to be the place where such beings overcome with despair go to wither and die. It is also believed by many that something terrible lurks within the abyss. The Bone Gnars say that there the most powerful of the vampires dwell. The Geta Fenris claim that hordes of worm spawn await the day of the apocalypse, whence they will burst out of the abyss to overrun the world. The Stargazers think it a kind of spiritual paradox within the Umbra, while the Silent Striders whisper of a legend that if a guru sacrifices himself willingly to the abyss, that it will close up forever. Such Striders will be quick to remind you, though, that some have tried, and yet the abyss is still there. Next, the Ethereal Realm. As its name implies, the Ethereal Realm is a dimension seemingly composed entirely of clouds and celestial bodies. The very ground you walk on is somehow comprised of vapors, while above, the stars spin around in ever-shifting patterns. The only sources of light in this realm are Luna, the spirit of the moon, and Helios, the spirit of the sun. Here dwell the Celestines and the Incarna, the two greatest classes of spirits, including the spirits of the actual planetary bodies of the solar system. For example, Gaia, though usually referred to as the spirit of the earth, is more akin to a spirit of nature. The actual spirit of the planet Earth is an Incarna named Eshtara. Similarly, while Helios and Luna are the spirits of the sun and moon respectively, it is in the sense of, again, a platonic ideal of the sun and moon. These Celestines also have respective Incarnas representing the actual planetary bodies. Katanka Sonak, the incarnate of the sun, is an aspect of Helios, while Sokta, the incarnate of the moon, is an aspect of Luna. The same applies to all the other celestial bodies of the solar system. Mitanu, the incarnate of Mercury, Hakahe, the incarnate of Vulcan, a planet that scientists used to think existed between Mercury and the Sun, Tambia, the incarnate of Venus, Nergal, the incarnate of Mars, Rorg, the incarnate of what is now the asteroid belt, and according to the Guru, was once a world of its own, but utterly destroyed by the worm, Zarok, the incarnate of Jupiter, Lubat, the incarnate of Saturn, Ruatma, the incarnate of Uranus, Shantar, the incarnate of Neptune, and Meros, the incarnate of Pluto. And of course, a most recent and unwelcome member of the cosmos, Anthelios, the Red Star, believed by many Guru to be the harbinger of the apocalypse. Along with the realms of the various Celestines and their incarnate, also exist realms belonging to each of the triad. The so-called wild reaches are a place of chaos, where planets spin around one another and even collide in impossible configurations, where suns burn with a radiation that freezes everything it comes into contact with. The Weaver reaches are a place where everything is so calcified and static that it looks more like a computerized generation of a map than an actual place, patrolled by vast star spiders to ensure that everything remains orderly and tidy and sterile as the Weaver so desires. Meanwhile, the Worm reaches are a place where stars have either burnt out into lifeless husks or collapsed into black holes, filled with nebulae of pollution and balefire. Next, the Arcadia Gateway. Once connected to the Dreaming, the pocket dimension where the Fae exist, it is a realm that was shaped by the emanations of those strange supernatural beings. Originally divided between the two great courts of the Fae, the Seelie and the Unseelie, in recent centuries, Arcadia Gateway has been almost entirely taken over by the Unseelie court. The realm resembles something like a twisted dark fairy tale, dangerous to the unwary traveler. A dark reflection of all the stories once told and believed when the Fae once walked the earth openly alongside other supernatural creatures. Next, the Atrocity Realm, a dimension forged from human pain and suffering. Here, the worst cruelties and atrocities ever committed are preserved for eternity. Here, spirits of the Umbra fester into malevolent banes corrupted to the worm's service. The only werewolves that ever go near Atrocity Realm are those who seek answers that can only be found in this horrific hellscape. Next, Battleground, a realm dedicated to violence. Just as every cruelty is preserved in Atrocity Realm, every war, every conflict, every minor skirmish is preserved in Battleground. Everything from the earliest struggles between cavemen and wild animals, to the wars of the modern age, to gang fights in urban cities, to the War of Rage and the Impergium itself. Here, every kind of soldier, from the Wehrmacht to Vikings to samurai to conquistadors to Confederate army troopers and 17th century cavaliers, all fighting one another in a strange mishmash conflict. Bronze swords and shields lie scattered alongside the wreckage of tanks and aircraft. Everywhere you look, you see burned out villages, corpse-strewn battlefields, and bombed out cityscapes. Only one place in Battleground is bereft of endless violence. A single open field, believed by many werewolf theurges to be the site where the battle of the apocalypse will one day be waged. There are only 3 ways to leave the Battleground realm. Join one of the many battles all around you and win, die in battle, in which case you are automatically transported to some place in the near Umbra, like a video game character being sent to your last checkpoint, or find a convenient evacuation site, though these are hard to find, unsurprisingly, in a realm consumed with chaotic violence. Next, Cyber Realm. Originally born of man's first use of technologies like stone-tipped spears, this particular part of the Middle Umbra exploded after the Industrial Revolution, and by the dawn of the 21st century has become a twisted reflection of the Information Age in its totality. This is a realm fully under the sway of the Weaver. Cyber Realm is comprised of 3 parts. First, the Pit, the foundation level of Cyber Realm, if you will. The Pit itself is nothing more than a mass graveyard for every failed, forgotten, or abandoned idea. Every failed technological concept, every deranged scientific experiment, every contraption that went nowhere, rusts in peace, as it were. On top of that pit is Spider City, a metaphysical monument to post-industrial urban living. In other words, everything about the modern world that the werewolves despise. Well, except maybe some of the glasswalkers. Spider City is divided into 3 levels: Old Town, Downtown, and Uptown. Old Town is essentially the heavily polluted and trash-ridden urban slums. Imagine any sort of cyberpunk dystopian cityscape, or for that matter, any modern large urban cityscape today, and you'll have a pretty good idea of what Old Town is like. Just add hostile Weaver spirits in for flavor. Next is Downtown, the middle level of Spider City, a monument to consumerism and the obsession with the latest technological fads. Every possible convenience and luxury of the modern world is available if you have the currency to buy it. In Cyber Realm, currency is a kind of liquefied gnosis known as juice, meaning that you literally have to pay with your own spiritual energy in order to get anything there. Downtown is crammed with shops, kiosks, and less reputable establishments of every conceivable kind, selling all manner of gadgets from the practical to the outright absurd. Downtown is completely sealed off from the old town below it. All elevator shafts and stairwells are completely blocked up. The only way to travel up or down the levels of Spider City is to climb upon the webs that festoon the skyscrapers, though of course you risk running afoul of Sentry Weaver spirits. And finally, above Downtown is Uptown, where the most powerful and dedicated servants of the Weaver reside as masters of all they survey. Nothing but the most luxurious penthouse suites for the most faithful servants of the Weaver. The only outsiders that get anywhere near Uptown, barring those willing to again risk climbing the webs and running afoul of the patrol spiders, are those with the appropriate ID cards. High above the rooftops of Spider City is the third aspect of Cyber Realm, and a relatively new addition, the computer web. You know those map pictures that show how the internet connects at these various different data nodes at various locations around the world? Well, the computer web is the Umbral reflection of that, a representation of the information networks of modern day. Each thread of the web represents a link between 2 computers. Next, Erebus, the Dante's Inferno of Werewolf the Apocalypse, a realm of punishment but also of spiritual cleansing. Accessible via Moonbridge, guarded by Cerberus himself, the great 3-headed dog of Greek mythology, and patrolled by creatures known as the Brood, a small army of guards that resemble hairless werewolves in Krynos form, armed with silver-tipped spears that burn with fire. Erebus resembles a volcanic landscape, only instead of molten lava, the rivers and lakes flow with molten silver. Into this molten silver goes any guru believed to be far too tainted with either the influence of the wild, the weaver, or the worm. In case you haven't figured it out by now, silver is the only substance that is truly fatal to werewolves. But death doesn't really work in Erebus, so being immersed in molten silver means nothing less than unending agony for the unfortunate victim. At the center of Erebus is the great fortress of Charis, the Incarna who is mistress of this realm. The Brood are her servants, and by using magical silver mirrors, they enter the minds of those guru imprisoned within the molten silver lakes of Erebus. Once inside the mind of the werewolf in question, they force the subject to confront what they did and admit their guilt, thus allowing them to be finally purged of sin and released from their torment. Next, Flux, the only remaining realm in the Middle Umbra where the Wild's influence still reigns supreme and unchecked by either the Worm or the Weaver. As the Wild is an entity of pure chaotic creation, so too is Flux. Here, mountains rise and crumble within seconds. Deserts bloom into forests one minute, only to wilt into ash the very next. Light, color, space, time, and gravity all are malleable in flux. Nothing works as it should in the physical world. As such, it is very, very dangerous to remain in flux for too long, for otherwise the realm begins to work upon you and will begin to alter you as well. Next, Legendary Realm. Here, Guru may see what the physical world once looked like in the days of the Impergium. But more than anything else, Legendary Realm is that, a realm of legends. Here, Guru may see and relive the deeds of all the great ancestors of their kind. It is also here where each tribe has their tribal homeland, the sort of afterlife reward where those who have done great service to Gaia may reside after they die. However, while Legendary Realm preserves the stories of old, it does not keep them the same. The ideals of people, including the Guru, change over time, and the stories within Legendary Realm may sometimes change to reflect new ideals. Next, Malpheus, the realm of the worm itself. It is by far the most hellish of all the realms of the Middle Umbra. Every horrible thing you can imagine, and some things that are so horrible they cannot be imagined lest they drive you insane, can be found in Malpheus. All aspects of the worm exist here in Malpheus to one extent or another. There are even those that suggest that the worm of balance, that is, the worm as it was before it became corrupted by its imprisonment by the Weaver, also exists in Malpheus. Some even dare to say that possibly finding and freeing the balance worm might undo all of the damage that the corrupt worm has done, though most deride this story as little more than wishful thinking. Mostly, Malpheus is dominated by the 13 most powerful and vile Banes, the Meligin Incarna, the most powerful and vile of all the worm's lieutenants. The only good thing about them is that they compete amongst themselves and the worm's other servants for its favor as much as they try to fight the Guru and other champions of Gaia. And finally, of course, the most infamous feature of Malpheus, the Black Spiral Labyrinth, the place where the Black Spiral dancers were twisted into the vile monstrosities that they are today. And to this day, many Black Spirals will walk that madness-inducing labyrinth in an effort to prove themselves to the worm, though usually all this does is drive them even more insane than they already are. Next, Pangaea, a representation of Earth as it was before human history, before civilization, before even the Impergium. Earth in its most primal state, when all the continents were as one, hence the name. But it's also an age of anachronisms, as you can see primordial humans, or representations of primordial humans in Pangaea, hunting creatures that mankind never encountered in the flesh, like the ancient dinosaurs. While many shapeshifters can come and go from this realm, the ones that truly dominate Pangaea and have special claim to it are the Mokole, the were-reptiles, descended from the ancient dinosaurian lizard kings who once ruled all the world. Apart from them, any shapeshifter that stays too long in Pangaea begins to degenerate into more and more primitive forms. Sometimes even primitive forms that may or may not have even existed. Think the de-evolution gun from the Super Mario Bros. Movie, only it's everywhere. Next, the Scar, the ultimate metaphysical monument to everything wrong with industrialization. A place where the worm and the weaver coexist in a kind of sick and twisted alliance. Think the most run-down, pollutant-filled, befouled slums in the world, and that is what the Scar is. Covered everywhere with pollutant residue and dotted with factories that produce not more smoke and gas, but rather worm fetishes. The Scar is by far the most difficult of the Middle Umbra realms to leave, because here Weaver spirits have thickened the gauntlet so much around the borders of the Scar itself. Next, the Summer Country, a realm so faded and distant and nigh inaccessible that many have begun to see it as little more than a legend or even a memory. Very few in the modern Knights have ever seen it. Most only even hear about it obliquely in the stories of Galliards. The stories all say that the Summer Country is supposed to be a manifestation of Gaia's love for all life. Legends say that in ancient times, the greatest heroes of the Garou would discover the Summer Country at the most pivotal moments of their journeys. In the Summer Country, they would have received healing, peace, wisdom, or gifts of spiritual power. Nowadays, the Summer Country barely exists at all, and even then, mostly in the stories. One might suppose that the Garou should be grateful that it hasn't completely disappeared altogether. And finally, the last realm of the Middle Umbra, Wolfholm. Wolfholm is a place where angry Lupus elders will sometimes send arrogant Hamid members of the tribe, or wayward young Lupus, to remind them of what it is to be a wolf and the importance of what they are in a world where the wolf population is increasingly shrinking. Wolfholm is pristine wilderness, where Garou not only lose access to all their other spirit powers and rights, but they are forced into their Lupus form and they cannot change out of it for the duration of their stay. One must master the ways of the wolf and live truly as a wolf in order to survive. Not only because they must hunt prey there in order to live, but also because there are spirits in Wolfholm that take the form of human hunters in pursuit of wolves, from primitive pit traps to employing helicopters to hunt them from the skies. And that is the nickel and dime tour of the Umbra, one of the bigger, ill-defined, but also crucial aspects of the World of Darkness. It's not all about the Garou, it's just that Werewolf the Apocalypse has the most to do with the Umbra apart from the Wraiths. But next we come to the part that I've really been looking forward to try out, the Lost Tribes, the Bunyip, the Croatan, and the White Howlers. Special thanks to subscriber The Soul of the Dragon for voting for this on Subscribestar. See, voting does matter, people, so join up.